making calcium reactor tuning simple. Couple pieces of equipment that's going to allow you to really make it simple is the carbon doser from carbondoser.com and the Gamora from CoreView. Those two components really nowadays make utilizing a calcium reactor really, really simple. Less fiddling with it to get in the perfect drip rate and solution mixture in the reactors. Back in the day, you know, it wasn't that easy, okay? And maybe that was a deterrent from people actually utilizing calcium reactors. And also with that being said, the price tag on the equipment just to utilize calcium reactors. Now, I'm going to say this, and this is my strong opinion in this hobby. Everybody's always asking for secret sauce. What is the secret sauce to keeping a beautiful reef tank? Now, I don't know how many of you guys actually went out and done some research or seeing a very big, beautiful systems, or just beautiful systems, not even happen to be big, but nice, beautiful systems. And how many of you guys paid attention that the majority of these systems that you see that are so well done are utilizing calcium reactors? That is the secret sauce, people. Why is it the secret sauce? Because hands down, in my opinion, you don't have to utilize my opinion or, you know, take it as actual facts. At the end of the day, calcium reactors makes things 10 times more stable, I feel, than anything else when it comes to this hobby. And that's a very strong opinion coming from me. Okay? How do you get much better than something that is continuously dosing your aquariums 24/7 with all the minor and major essential trace elements? What's more better than that? I have a hard time sometimes of listening to people that say, well, I only have a 40-gallon system. I only have a 75-gallon system. My personal opinion, if I was to ever run an aquarium that small, bet your bottom dollar, at the end of the day, me personally, I'm running a calcium reactor. Now, there are a couple calcium reactors that are nano. Geo makes a nano calcium reactor. Aquamax makes a nano calcium reactor. Okay? And I think there might be one other one. Or one in between those two. Okay? Nano calcium reactors. Okay? I don't care. Most people are running 40 gallons and up. But in my opinion, I will always run a calcium reactor. Okay? It's simple. All the way across the board. We pay good money for the corals that we are keeping in these aquariums. Okay? Good money. I don't understand why we won't pay good money for good pieces of equipment that is going to keep your water chemistry on point. You can take this video however you want to take it, but at the end of the day, my opinion is, if you want a good, stable, and good chemistry when it comes to water parameters, that's the secret sauce. We used to talk about secret sauce a lot back in the day on my old channel. I've actually had CJ's Aquarium come here. The first thing he wanted to do was run into the filtration room to see where my success lied in. And it was staring him in the face. He seen a basic setup. All he seen was a calcium reactor, this protein skimmer, and a horse trough. Okay? That's what he saw. And back then, I don't even think he realized this was my secret sauce. This has always been my secret sauce. This has always been my ability to have big, beautiful tanks. Okay? So, with that being said, let's get straight into the video of tuning a calcium reactor. So now, we're going to tune the calcium reactor. How do we tune a calcium reactor? Depending on what regulator you chose to go with, my recommendation, honestly, is the carbon doser from carbondoser.com for people that are definitely never done a calcium reactor or anything, because it's 10 times more simpler than using some of the other regulators with this little knob here that is really touchy, and you have to fiddle with it a lot. It's very hard to, can be very hard to tune in. Okay, let's just say. Not impossible, just going to take a lot longer to get things where you need them to be. Also, with that being said, it's very important to utilize your pH probe, in my opinion. I don't need a bubble counter for me. I base everything on what the pH is in the reactor, making sure the pH probe is calibrated accordingly to what you need. What you need for a calcium reactor, you need to have a pH solution to calibrate your pH probe of 7 and 4. Okay? Anything under 7 becomes acidic. That's what you need, period. Okay? So, that is definitely very important. Now that the Kimura came out from CoreView, makes things even way more simpler, okay? Because you can control the fluid rate. You turn a little knob. How hard can that be? Now, understanding to normally get set up, depending on what size your system is going to base the overall cost for your calcium reactor. With these two parts alone, the carbon doser from carbondoser.com and the Kimura from CoreView, those two components alone, they're $600, minus the calcium reactor, minus the media, minus the extra pH probe. And as you can see, why people are deterred from running a calcium reactor. But you're not deterred from purchasing bounce mushrooms, Walt Disney's, home wreckers, Pikachus, and Wolverines, and all these acronyms. You're not deterred from those price tags, but you're deterred from a calcium reactor that is going to allow your animals to really thrive in stable water conditions. I don't know what's wrong with that picture. I actually do, but I don't understand why people don't get the memo, and why would you buy expensive animals but not the equipment to allow those expensive animals to really thrive and take the workload off of your shoulders. Not having to fill up jugs, not having to worry about any of that. Okay, you're taking skeleton corals of oyster shells, seashells, and old skeleton corals and utilizing what they grew, took in to grow and thrive in their environment, and you are now breaking them down and releasing all those things back into your aquarium and keeping a stable water parameters, being calcium and alkalinity and all these good things. So, definitely a pH probe, and the reason why, you need a bubble counter. You want to see what your bubble size are and all that, okay? This big knob on this particular carbon doser, right? This big knob here sets the pH, PSI that is running through here, essentially determining bubble size and stuff like that as well, okay? Depending on what your PSI you're running here, okay, is the pressure that's going to be here. This gauge over here is the PSI of your overall pressure of your tank. What's left in your tank. As your tank starts to deplete, the PSI starts to drop. This knob here in the middle of this carbon doser goes anywhere from 0.1 to 10. That's bubbles per second. By the ease of the knob dictates how many bubbles a second is going to go through your bubble counter, which is CO2, and allow your recirculating pump here that is attached to your reactor to constantly recirculate the CO2 to break down and keep this as saturated as you want. A pH of, I'm running right now, 6.85. Okay? And I'm still tuning. Now, these things are not tuned overnight. They take time to get down to where and keep things steady. And then you let it steady out. And then you do another water test. See how things going. Let it run a little longer and see if things are going up or going down. Okay? And we'll come back to that in a second. Also with the Kimura there, it's one knob, guys. One knob. Okay? You set whatever milliliters a minute you want. Right now, I'm running 75 milliliters a minute. I like a little bit more of a almost drip / full run. That's how I do it. But I'm still new with the Kimura, and I'm tuning things in and figuring out what rate do I need. I decided to start off, even though it's a very light bio load in the system. But when I initially set this up, I tested the water first and realized that my DKH was 7.2. Calcium was 419, 420, and magnesium was between 1410 and 1440. Okay, pretty good numbers. I don't typically run my DKH under 8. I like to be around 8, 8.5 to 9. Okay, in between there, I'm fine no matter what. Doesn't matter. I let it go. It's set. Forget it and stay. Okay. As you find that you are, you still do your weekly water test when you're running a calcium reactor. Things like to pick up and start growing sometimes rapidly. That's when you need to make fine adjustments. So your pH probe still saying it's 7 or 6.8, let's just say, in the reactor. But things are growing. You are at 8 DKH in your system, and now you're at 7. You can easily change this, bump this up. If you was doing 1 bubble a second, now you're doing 2 bubbles a second. You let that go ahead and regulate. You can try to leave your affluent line, your milliliters a second where they're at, or you speed those up. It really depends. After you make this adjustment, this does what it does. You can go ahead and bump your Kimura from, say, 75 in my case. We'll go to 80. Then we'll see and do our test every couple days and see where things are going. Or if they're raising, cool. Let them raise. Continue to test until it stables out. If it stables out from, let's say it was at 7 and it went back up to 8, that's fine. If you want a little bit more, you give it a little bit more fluid length, so you go from 80, say, to 85. You want to keep this at 6.8. As you gave it more, it starts to rise out of 6.8. You give it another bump. 3 bubbles per second instead of 2. And it should come back down to 6.8. If it went up to 6.9, or you can leave it if it's keeping up. It's really up to you. So in the next round, let's say you left it and went from 6.8 to 6.9, put your alkalinity, DKH, went to 8, and it was fine, right? So you notice it's coming down again, And instead of messing with your fluid line, you just go ahead and give it more CO2. Instead of 3 bubbles per second, now you're at 4 bubbles per second. It is really that simple. It does not get more simpler than that at all. So I think it's very important for you to understand how to tune in a reactor. There's a lot of people that have been asking tons and tons of questions. That's why I created somewhat this little mini series on it. And I'm really hoping that I'm answering a lot of people's questions out there, so I can concentrate on other things that people are wanting, like my lighting schedule and the reasons why I'm running my lights at what schedule, at what height, the whole 9 yards. So, with that being said, it's very simple. I do understand that the pricing on these things are not as cheap as one would like. Okay? But what is in a hobby? You have to ask yourself, what hobby is there outside of crocheting or knitting is really not expensive? Okay? And if it's not expensive, then how time consuming is it, and what is your time worth? Even though you might crochet or knit, let's just say, how many hours did it take for you to make a quilt or a blanket? That same $2 thing of yarn and $2 crocheting needles and stuff, you have $5 invested, but it took you a month to do one quilt. And if you was to sell that quilt, now what would that blanket or quilt be worth? You'd probably have a couple $100, $100 and something dollars, something. And even then, is that really justifying the time that you put into it? Probably not. You have to really think about these things, people. You really have to think about the animals that you are keeping and the expense of these animals. Okay? It's not cheap. But wouldn't you rather invest your money into pieces of equipment that are going to get you there where you want to be and have a beautiful system that at some point you're able to frag, and now you're starting to be able to sell frags if you need to or would like to with other people, and that's when you start to get a return for your investment. Okay? You could slowly start knocking out what it cost you initially with your aquarium to start up, and slowly make a list and how much you sold and what the prices were, and total those up until you finish paying off your investment. So don't get discouraged at the pricing, people. If you want the secret sauce, that's my secret sauce, okay? I don't think it's much a better secret sauce out there as far as water chemistry, stability, and the whole 9 yards. I don't understand how do you get more better or anything better than a calcium reactor. If you think you can convince me of something that is way more better than a calcium reactor that is taking the exact same thing that we're growing, that are LPS and SPS, that has a skeleton-based system, or even things that don't. It's the chemistry of the water. No, soft corals don't utilize things up as fast as LPS or SPS corals, but they still utilize things. Okay, you probably wouldn't need the drip rate or anything like that, and you could just simply do a water changes as well. But, and you should still do that regardless. But a calcium reactor is putting so much more than you can ever imagine back into your system, that 2-part liquid dosing and all this stuff that is not going to just do it for you. Okay? If it is, you might not see negative side effects, but things may be lacking that you just don't see with the naked eye. Okay? But at the end of the day, for me, this is my secret sauce. I hope you enjoyed the video. And with that being said, till next time, peace.